Hello, hello, and welcome to Thinking Outside the Soil. I'm your host, Sean Short. In today's episode, I have something special for horse owners out there and something that I hear from horse owners all the time. How can I feed my horses better? So today I'm going to be talking to a gentleman from Texas who's been feeding out his horses for over 15 years. Now, a colleague of mine told me that he met a gentleman up at the Dude Ranch convention in Billings recently and said that I need to talk to this gentleman. He's somebody who's shown that this stuff works. And most particularly, he is feeding fodder to horses that do polocrosse. Now, for quick context, polocrosse is a hybrid sport between polo and lacrosse. So if you can imagine, you've got polo players playing polo in a semi-lacrosse fashion. Paul Johnson, welcome. Thank you for being here. Paul Johnson is the owner and operator of Cripple Gray Ranch in McCade, Texas. And Paul, really, I'm curious, what got you into horses? What got you started on this journey?
I'd been riding horses all my life. And when I turned 16, I was old enough to get a driver's license and a motorcycle. I decided I was too old for horses. I got rid of my last horse, and that was it. Then one of my marriages, one of my previous wives, started accumulating horses and then left me. And so I had horses, and I was looking for things to do with them. I discovered polocrosse, which I liked. It gave me something to do, something to train the horses for. There's always improvement to be made. And I started playing polocrosse and competing, started accumulating horses. And I think I had 12 horses in 2011. And here in Texas in 2011, we were in about the third year of a severe drought. We were having fires in our immediate area, and there was no hay in the state of Texas. You could go to the feed store and buy feed, but the price had increased so much. If you got hay, it would be of poor quality, and it would have been something that was, shipped in from other state, and would cost a whole bunch. And I had been interested in this fodder business, or this fodder, not as a business, but as a feed for the horses. And I'd seen only one commercial setup. It's from Australia. It's the one that was kind of first around that at least I knew about.
The Fodder Group, maybe? Does that sound about right? There's a couple down there. Anyways,
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This is one of the originals that sold containers, and they were they enclosed the environment. So they
Like a shipping container, correct?
Yeah, they weren't reconditioned shipping containers, but they were a box basically.
Okay. Yeah.
That helped, was heated and cooled and so forth. Anyhow, and I thought about, maybe getting one of those, and it seems like they were like $15,000 for one the size that would suit me, and I just couldn't seem to do that. But that summer, I would get catalogs from Farm Tech, and in their catalog, the first time in their catalog, they had this fodder system listed. It wasn't the building, but it was everything else. And it was like $3,000. And I thought I could try it out see if it works, and maybe I wouldn't have to continue buying feed and hay, or I could just keep buying feed and hay, and $3,000 would get me about 3 months down the road, and I'd have to do it again. So
Yeah.
I went with their system, and at that time, they were very new to fodder. That was the first time they had it in the catalog. They didn't really know much about how to advise you on how to use the system. They didn't know much about if it uh, what the nutrients were for horses or maybe for anything. Um,
Yeah.
but it was cheap, and so I did that. I had to I put it in what used to be my little feed room in the barn, just a 12 by 12 building, but I had to insulate and finish off the inside of the walls, just put a window air conditioner in there to air condition it. And I started with that system. And I immediately started modifying it. It was made to have 12 trays on each row. I mean, it's made to have 10, and I wanted to have 12 because what I was feeding then was about one of their trays per horse per day.
Okay. So
And that would,
did you start with just one horse, or did you just
oh
go
no,
for all
I already
dozen?
had 12 horses at the time.
So you're like, we got to feed them all. Okay.
Right. And if I hadn't gone to that, I would have had been feeding 12 horses for this very high, poor quality, high price, poor quality hay and very high price feed just to keep them going. Anyhow, so I started them on that in 2011, and um, their system was a recyclable system and is an NFT system. And I would make little changes here and there. The recycling the water was getting them clogged up, getting the outlets clogged up. So I quit recycling the water, and we're dry here in Texas, so I just drain the water out in the pasture, which that's fine with me. The
Yeah.
pasture can always use water out there. Yeah, that might be one little spot where the grass might grow.
It's the only spot probably, huh?
Well, it was a terrible year. It was that, and it's very common for us to have dry weather and in need of water. Um, anyhow, the I made some modifications, and I was trying to find out, is this nutritious? Do I also have to feed hay along with uh, with the fodder? And nobody knew. Uh, I reached out to the equine nutritionist that at Texas A&M University, which is our ag kind of university in Texas. I reached out to the equine nutritionist and asked him about. He didn't know the first thing about the nutritional value of fodder for horses. I had a friend who's a PhD in equine nutrition. I sent her some information and asked her to tell me the nutritional value. And all the experts just don't have any way. They don't have any way to figure out what the nutritional value of fodder is. The only way they know how to measure nutrition is to kill this living plant, dry it, grind it up, and measure in weight the different chemicals that it turns into. And it just does not apply to to fodder, to a living plant that has enzymes and macrobiotics and all these other things that is going on that doesn't even relate to the chemicals and the protein and all the other things that they say horses actually need. I did reach out to some company, I think is in Oregon. There was a couple guys up there, and they were selling systems, but they had been feeding their own horses fodder for 5 years. And they told me a couple things that were good for me. They said that fodder should take care of everything. You shouldn't need any extra feed or any extra hay. The fodder should do it. That's what they'd been doing for 5 years. And
so they were just feeding fodder out to their horses, or were they mixing rations at all, or just pure fodder?
No, that's what I'm talking about. They were not feeding. I mean, their horses are in pasture, and mine are also. And sometimes there's grass in their pasture. They get some of that. But for supplementing what they get from the pasture, those guys were only using fodder. And I, starting in 2011, was only using fodder. No more commercially bought feed, no more hay to feed them. And my PhD friend said, well, it looks like the chemical balance is wrong on the calcium to phosphorus. I don't know if you know about horses, and I don't know chemical stuff about horses, but she said the calcium phosphorus ratio should be more calcium than phosphorus. And what I'd sent her was some of these original fodder people had sent their fodder off to places to get it analyzed, and they would dry it and do that kind of stuff and to get their chemical analysis. And those chemical analyses always came back with less calcium than phosphorus, and it needs to be at least the same amount of calcium as phosphorus, or more calcium than phosphorus. That's better than less. Go the other way. And for horses, if they are not getting calcium, it can be a big problem. They get big head disease in young ones, and their bones become brittle, and that kind of stuff. And so I was concerned about that. And so I thought, well, I'll just put a little bit of extra calcium on each of the fodder deals before I feed it out. And I did put maybe maybe a tablespoon in each tray, sprinkle on limestone over it, and fed it out. And a few, I don't know, weeks, months later, I had a horse at the vet for something else where they took blood, and they called me like, this may be important. Says your calcium level is dangerously high for this particular horse. And I guess it's for all of them. I'm all feeding them that same.
Yeah.
So I quit putting that stuff off and haven't thought about it since. All the horses still alive. It hadn't affected them. If that balance is wrong, I don't think it makes any difference. Anyhow, and none of this information was available on the internet back then.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be good to let people know if I found out something about the nutritional, if I found out how long to soak, how long to water, how much to feed, or anything. I thought that should just be, I should put it out there for people. And so I started a Yahoo group to just um, publish everything I found out about it and encourage other people to respond, tell me their experiences and things like that. And I I put information on that Yahoo group for several years, and then Yahoo did away with Yahoo groups.
Yeah.
And when they by the time they died, there were tons of fodder websites, a bunch of different companies selling systems, a bunch of blogs, and there was a bunch of stuff there. So I didn't redo it. I let it die, and the information was now available other places. So I let that go. But I did try to make videos of my process of my feeding and planting and process. And my process has evolved 4 or 5 major times. Um, and so with each major evolution, I would try to video what I put up there. Of course, there are lots of videos now from other people. So
Yeah.
mine are there, but mine aren't the only videos available about feeding fodder. So that's how I got started. That's what I've been doing. I was concerned about, well, if I had to continue buying hay, that was going to be a problem. But since I didn't have to buy hay, I wondered what savings I might be having from,
Yeah.
uh, money wise from fees and stuff. And when I figured it, it would have been around 2011, 2012, somewhere pretty early on when I was doing this. Um, I figured the way I was feeding before, I was feeding it would cost me about $3 per day per horse. And I was feeding round bales of hay and of coastal hay and a commercial feed mix.
Okay.
Um, and with the fodder, it was costing me less than 50 cents a day per horse.
Wow.
So, and I was figuring that on a, um, I was figuring that as if I were getting 5 times as much in a weight of fodder as the weight of the seeds that I planted, 5 to 1. And I would normally get more than 5 to 1, but I could count on getting at least 5 to 1. So the actual numbers would have probably been a little more in my favor. But anyhow, I was saving money, and I haven't had a horse colic since then. Uh, since I've been feeding
Since
the
she's
fodder, and
yeah.
colics were normal. I'd have 2 or 3 every year. Um, it is for horses. The fodder, the living plant, is alkaline, and one of the big problems with horses, especially performance horses, that you're pumping feed into, you're pumping commercial concentrated feed into, and they're using it, and they're getting hyped up. I mean, that's because you want them hyped up, or
Yeah. Yeah.
like the racers and stuff do. Um, but all the commercial feed is acidic, and almost someone told me a number one time. It seems like it's over 90% of race horses have ulcers, and the acidic feed that they're being fed is just aggravating those ulcers. Whereas if you put them on fodder, it's almost like a medical treatment for those ulcers that they've got. Anyhow, it's better for them, I think, nutritionally. Oh, and another thing, horses can only um, utilize. Oh, they can only digest uh, a little less than 30% of commercial feed, and fodder they can digest over 70%. And so if you just consider how much you save and how much poundage you feed, the poundage you feed goes farther for the horse because they can actually make use of it. They can they can they can digest it and put it in their body like twice as much as uh, the same poundage of commercial feed. Anyhow, so there's lots of things about it that are good. It's good financially. It's much better for the horses health wise. Uh, my horses were playing polocrosse, so they were competing. And it's hard to evaluate to see if they're any better or faster or stronger, but they certainly were not um, having any issues about health wise for their performance either. And I know they've done some tests in cattle and dairy cows and probably some sheep and some other things um, that have, and every single one that I know about, that the actual studies that I know about show that whatever uh, livestock they're feeding, it is better for the livestock and it is cheaper. And the things they can measure, like dairy cows, they get more milk production and higher butterfat content. And beef cows, they get uh, more more poundage per day, or I don't know exactly how you say that, but anyhow, and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
All that stuff works out. I don't know about those other things, but for horses, it's cheaper. It's much better feed for the horse, but you have to go out there and plant it and harvest it each day.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you started doing all of this and started to see, some of these ahas, what did other horse owners think? Did they think you were crazy? What did they think about it?
Uh, a few people were kind of interested. I don't think anybody, and a few people tried it, but it's kind of a commitment that I guess they were happy enough to continue paying high feed bills and vet bills and stuff like that rather than taking the 20, 30 minutes a day to do the planting and the putting it out. Um, and it may be trouble for them. I mean, um, when I started, I wanted to start with barley, and we're down here in the South, and barley is really a northern crop.
Hmm.
My feed store could get it, but they'd have to special order it, and it was costing. I paid for it for a little while. It's $38 for 50-pound bag, and where um, just generic horse feed uh, or whole oats or something like that was like $13 a bag. Um, so I ended up first I rented a dump trailer and drove 200 miles to a mill near Fort Worth where I could buy uh, barley in bulk. They just dump up in my trailer. I tried to get 6,000 pounds on a trip. And uh, right away, I bought an auger So when I get the rented trailer back home with the seeds in it, I would auger it into barrels and then take the rented trailer back and store it in barrels till my next trip. Later on, I bought my own trailer, so wasn't renting them. But I was able to buy it in bulk, which cut uh, my expenses way down rather than buying uh, $38 for 50 pounds of seeds. I was paying $200 something a ton. So um,
Much
it was
difference.
it was much better. But even at $38 a bag, it was still cheaper. It was still better.
Still better, yeah. I have similar conversations with people with all kinds of different species: chickens, horses, cattle, beef for dairy, and I tend to say to them, it is a bit of a commitment. But it's a lot like how we as humans choose to eat certain things. And if we eat the same thing all the time, we get to actually see the, positive or negative benefits of it. If you're going to McDonald's every day, eating fast food or junk food every day, you see the ill effects of a poor diet, let's say. Whereas if, you're eating healthy food, healthier food, wholesome food, a variety of stuff, you tend to see, the health benefits, the health implications, and stuff like that. And I'm assuming at a lot of levels, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, that you probably noticed that very quickly in your horses. What did you start seeing when you were like, fodder seems to be working, and what were some of the key things that you saw with your horses, and what are you still seeing today?
I didn't see much difference in the performance, and that's something that's kind of hard to judge on the kind of things we were doing. But uh, and this I wouldn't have even noticed this, but we have a lady that trims our horses' feet. Uh, I've I've quit shoeing many years ago, so we just do trims. I used to do them myself, but I've gotten old, and I would pay someone to do it. And this lady that was doing our trimming uh, was interested in the idea of feeding fodder to the horses. Well, didn't make any difference to me. I didn't know, but she knew that my horses were living on fodder, and something had happened. Oh, it may have been summertime. When I'm gone, when I leave on vacation, uh, I don't put the fodder out, and sometimes I shut the system down while I'm gone. Anyhow, this our farrier, or this trimming lady, said, "What's going on with your horses? Your horses used to have really good feet, and now they're not so good." Well, they had been off of fodder for a little while, and next time or two she came out, she said, "Oh, I guess they're back on fodder now." Evidently, she could tell by looking at their, just how healthy their hoofs were, uh, that they were getting good nutrition. I also noticed I had a little black horse that seemed to have spots on her one day that I thought, that looks like a skin disease or something. So I looked into it, and it was just dappling. And I started looking into that, and dappling just is an indication that they are getting excellent nutrition. It's just so good for them. There, and I wasn't aware of dappling in black or dark horses, um, but um, that's it. It happens, and that's what it is. So anyhow, I think they're what I've noticed is their health always seems to be, from what you can look at, very good. and we just haven't had to take horses to the vets for colics, for choke, for uh, tying up, for anything. We will have an injury here and there, but from metabolic type things, we just haven't had any vet bills uh, since we've been on the fodder.
But yeah, that's a huge testament that ties a little bit back to what I was saying earlier about, when we eat better as humans, or when we're feeding out our animals better feed, we tend to see those benefits in different ways. So, I mean, lower vet bills, healthier hooves, especially when, your farrier, I imagine, been around thousands of horses and very quickly is like, hey, something's different with Paul's horses.
Yeah, and I don't look at their hoofs enough to know when they're good or bad. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah. It's those little things that, we don't necessarily notice, but you get to hear that from other people. And I think sometimes that's the type of validation that someone would need, especially I imagine early on when you were learning and figuring it out and seeing some of these different things. That was likely a key piece of, you know, evidence, anecdotal evidence that said, hey, what I'm doing is working. I'm going to keep figuring out how to do it. Those likely encouraged, one or two or three of your evolutions of your system along the way too, I bet, huh?
Yeah, and and the money was such a big deal to me. Some people it's not. Um, I was really into this in 2011, so I had a lot of horses, but the number of horses have been going down quite a lot. I only have 4 horses on my place now, so my s- I have a smaller system developed. Uh, I think it could accommodate maybe 7 horses, but um, I'm not doing as much. But I'm able to do what I am because I can do it cheaper than the way most people are doing it.
Now, when you started, were you doing polocrosse when you started feeding fodder? How long you been
Yes,
into that?
I had I had already uh, been into polocrosse, and we were, you know, very particular about what kind of feed we're buying for them and how we're taking care of them and that kind of stuff. Um, we weren't buying any cheap any cheap feed for them. But in fact,
Athletes need good
my
food.
own my own competing ended before the fodder stuff. I still had a lot of horses. Other people were playing them and stuff. Um, but I quit competing in 2007, I think. And so I started the fodder in 2011 and
Okay.
and have been kind of diminishing the number of horses that I have on the place since then.
From what I understand, or at least what it looks like, is so. Do you train others in polocrosse now and work with other?
Uh, I have when we started playing polocrosse, you couldn't find anything written down about how to do it. And I wanted to know how to do it. I wanted to know how to do it well. And there was just nothing nothing there. But we struggled along and we practiced, tried, learned, played, and I think we started in 1989. And in the year 2000, our mainly our club won uh, the nationals just here in the country, and we were very anyhow. we got to be pretty darn good. Um, and just like fodder, I thought people that wanted to get into polocrosse would like to have something written down about how to do it,
Hmm.
how to train the horses for polocrosse. From the beginning, I had been training my own horses, and I trained horses for other people to play polocrosse. And um, as we're developing our skills and our, you know, getting better as we get better playing against other people and so forth. Um, our techniques and our skills and our tactics we were developing, and I wrote a book,
I've
and
got a book. Yeah.
that uh, it's now in its fourth edition. It's called Paul Johnson's Polocrosse Book, and it's available on lulu.com.
All right. We'll make sure we link that in our show notes so folks can
Um,
check that out.
but anyhow, it the first part of it is training the horse, deals with training the horse. Second part of it deals with the own personal individual skills, and the third part is with team tactics. And I still say it's the only book in the world that tells people how to play polocrosse. But uh, but I did, and I do, and since I quit, I would still do clinics and coach and teach and uh, give people advice. But now I go to competitive tournaments and I take stats. So I developed a system that I can take statistics while the game is going on. Um, and nobody else does it. So I have to just keep going to the tournaments to take stats because nobody else will do it.
Got to find one of them young guys out
I
there to
do.
take over
I
when
mean,
you're.
I'm getting old. I'm not going to last forever. Somebody needs to pick it up, take it over.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious when you're working with people, do you talk about your feeding regimen? Do you talk about, hey, I'm feeding my horse's fodder? Maybe encouraging new people to do it, or
I I quit encouraging people. I'm not selling anything, and I don't even care if they. I mean, I'm not trying to convert anybody
yeah,
to it. I am happy to tell them about it if they're interested, and I'm happy to uh like when I was buying bulk feed, my neighbor was wanting to do it. She didn't need as much, but I could sell her some barrels of seed a lot cheaper than she could get them going to the stores. Anyhow, I'm willing to help people as I can, but I'm not pushing it. I'm not looking for converts. I want to make the information available that it is there, it does work, and I'll tell anybody that does, but I don't gain anything by other people doing it or not.
yeah. The proof's kind of in the pudding.
And
That
it's not commercial. I mean, you started your deal, but to be, your chickens, maybe if a lot of people that you deal with may just have their flock for their own family, for their own stuff. But it's a business for you to sell eggs and to sell broilers or whatever it is you do. It's a commercial business, and nothing that I do with the horses or the fodder is commercial or makes money. Um, so I'm not doing it for profit of any kind.
yeah. It makes sense. I work with a lot of like backyard chicken keepers. So like you're saying, like a few chickens. And at the end of the day, I do have my conversations about, how I see the benefits of feeding fodder to chickens. And, at the end of the day, I encourage them to just do their best, whatever that means for their family, whatever that means for them. Cause I don't necessarily know what, quote unquote best means. And at the end of the day, I think it's really just getting a deeper relationship with the way things are, the animals, the system, and the intricacies of the lifestyle that we live with those things.
Yeah. Um, when I started the fodder, since nobody else was doing it, I didn't have anybody mentoring me or
Yeah,
telling me how things should be done or giving advice or anything. So it was kind of an experiment for me with the horses. And after I got the horses going, I had raised rabbits years ago, and for rabbits, the big um, expense for rabbits was the feed.
yeah,
And I thought, I wonder how rabbits would do on this. So I got me some rabbits and started feeding them. And I thought, well, what about chickens? I had chickens before, and I like chickens and like to have eggs. So I got me some chickens. So I was, and just as a test, just as an experiment, just to
yeah,
kind of see how it works. The rabbits were amazing. Um, my litters were huge. They, they're, uh, the litter weight of of all of them after a certain number of days was way more than it usually is and it used to be. Um, and I also wasn't doing it as a commercial. It's just doing it as a test to see
mhm,
how it does. Anyhow, it's great for them. For the for the rabbits and the chickens, I did have them free choice other like rabbit pellets. There was free choice for that, and I would feed them fodder. Uh, so I didn't adjust how much percent they were getting of the fodder they were getting from the fodder and how much from the feed with the chickens either. Uh, but they all did great on it.
yeah, yeah. I've talked to uh, rabbits are becoming very popular, especially among those people that are raising backyard chickens and other things. And it's something that made me kind of laugh inside is that we often joke in some of the circles I run in that chickens are kind of the gateway to starting a farm, and it sounds like the horses were your gateway to doing more and more and experimenting. And um, I'm curious what next animal you might try.
I don't think I'll be trying anymore. I'm just maintaining what I have until either I run out or the horses run out. Till
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
that makes sense.
um, not I'm not promoting anything else. So
I'm curious, for some of those people like your neighbor and some of those other people that ask you about fodder, do they actually try it themselves, or do you just help kind of hold their hand along the way, or have they had any success?
a few people have tried it that just because of me that
Hmm.
I'm aware of, and I'd say none of them stuck with it more than 6 months, maybe a little bit more. Um, and they each had their own issues. One family had horses. I don't know if that's why they were doing the fodder. They were just interested in the fodder, but they set up their fodder system in a bathroom, in the bathtub.
Hmm.
And that has its limitations. Um, you're already keeping the house probably a temperature that is okay for it, and that part. But there's fodder trays in your bathtub. So um, I don't know if that's why they, you know, gave it up, but
They needed to take a
everybody
shower probably at some point, right?
well, they may have had another one, I don't know. But anyhow, they each and I didn't keep too close a track of them. They
Yeah.
get started, next thing you know, uh, they're not they're not doing it anymore. But, I think every everyone has been successful in growing fodder. Now, what they do with it, and if they continue going on, uh, it's not because of any limitations or anything that was bad about the fodder, or uh,
Yeah.
it's just their lifestyle or whatever they had going on in their lives. They decided not to continue doing it.
What were some of the things that made it easy for you to continue? What
Well, the money was a big
kept
deal
you
for
going?
me.
Okay.
I mean, it was costing me $1,000 a month just to feed the horses that I had when I started.
Yeah.
And, I don't make much money. I've been retired a long time. I'm on a fixed income. And, so the money was a huge incentive for me to not give up. You know, Here I'm doing this, it works better, it's a whole lot cheaper. And, that was a big incentive for me. But knowing that what you're giving your horses is actually better for them than even the most expensive feed you can buy is also good. You can feed them stuff that's better than the most expensive feed and feed it for a lot less than even the
Seems like a
cheapest.
no-brainer to me. Really does. Cost at the end of the day for most people is, I think, I would assume is definitely influences whether we can or cannot do this stuff. And to me, it baffles me why, especially based on what you've said and what I've seen elsewhere is, look, if you're able to feed them out for less cost and get all these other benefits, whether it be, chickens or rabbits or horses and performance horses in particular, why would you not? Yeah. For any of those people out there that are like, Paul, I want to try fodder. What what do you tell them to focus on first?
For 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 my size of operation, now I'm only feeding 4 horses, but say I had 10 or
Yeah.
12 horses. Coming up with a system that you can a fodder growing system that will work for you. I kind of put some together from pieces and using household equipment that, um, like this, uh, room air conditioner that I'd gotten for that originally from my fodder room. Um, it was so humid in that room, the motherboard just couldn't take it, went out 3 times. Just because the equipment that I was using wasn't made for the conditions that I was putting it in. Um, and
Which makes sense. I mean, you were essentially pioneering a lot of stuff as there wasn't a lot of information out there when you got started. Didn't have a lot of support. The industry didn't even really know what they're doing, and your evidence is showing, hey, this is working differently than you think it should. So it does make a lot of sense. Which what is so aside from like, hey, this doesn't work. Were there any things that you see now that have carried through
well,
from?
of course, I got in for $3,000 instead of $15,000 because I thought, I'm gonna not spend so much money and still get the system.
Mhm.
And after I've been using it for a while, I would look back and think I probably would have been better off getting a complete system that has the environment built in. Everything is it's made for for it, and go ahead and pay that extra amount. That sounds like a whole lot, but when consider how much savings it is, you still come out cheaper in the long run. Like, I would have to redo my whole air conditioning system. I would have to, you know, completely change the type of waters that I'm using or the type of valves or, you know, just because it wasn't an integrated system all ready to go, made to work together. Um, that I would probably, if I were doing it now, I'd probably go and look at whatever systems are available and pick one that is ready to go and has everything in it set up and ready to go. I'd probably do that different. But there are people that have built their own systems, and I've built several systems too that have worked. Um, but I'm always doing it on a piece by piece basis and not having it integrated where I end up getting it working, but it has little issues. I need to change this or change that.
Hmm.
Um, so that for somebody who wants to get started, I try, I might suggest that. But sometimes people want to just test it to see if their horses like it. And I found out that when I offered it to my horses, they wouldn't even eat it. They wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't do anything.
Just turn their nose up at it, huh?
They didn't know what it was. And so I would have to introduce it to them slowly from the first time when I'm introducing it to all of them, or if I would get a horse in new, uh, I would have to introduce it to them slowly. So if somebody just wants to try it, see if their horse likes it, it's very likely that the horse may not like it if you just hand it to them first off. Um, but they all do come around, and they they all do eat it. Um, and they once they know what it is, they'll hunt for it. They'll look for it. They'll
Yeah.
uh, they'll like it. Uh,
Yeah, I see, and I imagine you've seen this too, or I'm curious. Whenever I'm feeding out our chickens or we've got some goats and a pony, they literally try to crash through the fence. They see me. I use a bucket to do my feed out, and as soon as I pull that bucket out, I've got chickens under my feet. I've got a goat trying to jump over a fence. Did your horses react like that at all?
uh, they're they're kind of like that for feed anyway.
Okay, fair,
For any kind.
fair.
But I have seen them, like, occasionally one horse, my wife will think it needs some extra alfalfa cubes or something. And so she'll be giving him some something like alfalfa cubes. And when I'm putting out the fodder, a lot of times they'll walk right away from their their alfalfa bucket to go eat the fodder. Um, anyhow, so they do appreciate it once they know what it is, and it's better for them. So I'm happy with them eating it. Whereas being happy with them eating commercial feed, it's like being happy with your kid eating candy or something. Yeah, they're gonna like it. They're gonna eat it, and it's not good for them. Uh,
Yeah, like you touched on earlier, you've got the digestive effects. Seeing all the things, I think said or implicitly even alluded to the fact that you're going to the vet less, you're seeing less challenges with their health, you're seeing all these positive health benefits from your horses, and I think that's a huge testament to what you're feeding.
And there have been some little tests. I'll tell you about one that uh, they tried feeding fodder, and they weren't feeding it 100%. They were feeding it with a particular portion of their regular feed at a riding stable, and they did it on, I think, 5 horses, and they had they weighed them every so often, and they had made notes of how the horse did during a lesson or whatever they were doing. And it was kind of amazing that actually what they say about fodder, it it gives them nutrition and the protein and the stuff they need to perform, but it doesn't make them hot. I don't know exactly the chemicals that's that's doing that. But in this test that somebody was doing with these these lesson horses, I think is a stable in California. Um, the trainer would note that the student noticed the horse wasn't as crazy or settled down and was easier to control and stuff like that, which is they thought contributed directly from being on fodder, that it hadn't been done before, because they were taking notes before also. So
Yeah.
there are things that you can actually see benefits that fodder is good. And I'm mostly dealing with horses, so uh,
Yeah.
that's what I know
So
most.
that's wonderful insight. I really appreciate you sharing all of that. Is there anything else before we wrap this up that I didn't get to ask you or that you're, itching to share?
Uh, I do have, I think I counted like 7, maybe 8 uh, videos on YouTube of
Mhm.
my different fodder setups that I've put on that are they're available on YouTube. If you can find, uh, just go to YouTube and look up Paul Johnson polocrosse, and you find any of my videos. All of these should be tagged with feeding horses fodder. Um, and I put these fodder ones in a playlist. So once you find them and look at a playlist of feeding horses fodder, you can just go through all of them. They're in order. So,
And I have to jump in and say they're great videos. I watched a lot of your videos, so I'll drop the link to your YouTube. So for those of you listening, uh, check out the show notes and look at Paul's YouTube channel. Wonderful things. You get to see horses eating fodder, get to see Paul behind the scenes with some of the systems. So, yeah, Paul, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on here with me. And thank you, sir.
okay. Thank you.